here on the island of Jersey in the Channel Isles, in a place that I'll ask Robin Smith in a moment. Robin, the Chief Officer of the States of Jersey Police. There's a car coming towards us, so we'll just move to one side to let them pass here. An absolutely beautiful spot, and we're now getting a slight rain shower on us, but Robin, let's move to one side out of the way of this car, and just tell me where we are at the moment. So, a beautiful bay.
So we're on the southern side of Jersey, the beautiful Jersey, and usually we were just seeing a little rain shower here. Just over to our left is La Corbière, which people will remember as the beautiful lighthouse.
It's in our photograph that will accompany this article.
Which will be lovely. And now we're walking around the sort of the southern lip of Jersey, and we'll see some beautiful scenery, some beautiful beaches, because ultimately Jersey is just one beautiful place.
And I've seen something of that over the last 48 hours. We have here a half hour ahead of us, where some of it we will be, there will be a gentle rain shower. All of a sudden, this road that was as peaceful as anything when we arrived a few minutes ago is now a little busier. So we have a rainbow, yes, which I don't know whether the camera can pick up on that. And just around that promontory, there's a wonderful further cove, I believe. So,
oh, wow, it's called the 5 Mile Road. Somebody told me once that it isn't actually 5 miles, but everybody knows that it's a 5 Mile road.
Well, we'll not be measuring it, but we'll be walking our way along it. So, let me actually come on this side of you, because that is the better view. Although, as we get higher, I may switch on to another side. So, the Chief Officer of the States of Jersey Police, and I'm going to get a narrow a bit, so I'll just go ahead of us just here. The States of Jersey Police, which that follows a in excess of 30 years that you have spent as a police officer in Sussex, in Surrey, in the British Transport Police, culminating, I believe, as the temporary Deputy Chief Constable of Surrey and Sussex forces, prior to some 2 years ago coming here to Jersey. Again, I'm going to get you on this side. So given that depth of experience in British policing, what did you make, what was it like finding your feet here as the Chief Officer here in Jersey?
Well, you know, sort of policing is policing no matter where you are. You know, it is about looking after our communities, responding to those occasions when they need us. As I often hear myself say, you know, our job is to catch the baddies, get there quickly when you need us, and protect the vulnerable. And I think that is anywhere. And you're off to other places, and I'm sure, whilst we may articulate that in different ways, that's ultimately our job. But of course, Jersey is its own country, its own island. It has its own governance.
Let's just pause here for a moment.
It makes its own laws. Yes, it's a Crown dependency, but the proximity from the police chief to government is really close, which in many ways makes things helpful to get things done. But ultimately I'm a police chief of a country, and therefore it's important to understand the politics. But most of all, Jersey has deep and rich traditions that it pays to understand those, appreciate those, recognise those. The worst thing anybody could do would be come to this beautiful place and start saying the things they need to do without understanding Jersey, and that's what I have sought to do. Unusually patient in my view, but you understand why Jersey is the way it is, and why it is the beautiful place that it is. It
is an absolutely stunningly beautiful place, as I can attest from just my last 48 hours. And here we have the lighthouse to which you were referring a little earlier on. This is, by Jersey terms, a small bay and a stony bay, and we'll see more of the bays in a moment or two. Jersey, for the outsider, of which I count myself as one, and just bear with me for a second, let me switch you over to behind me so I can catch, if you just hang on there for a second, Robin, so I can get ahead. And for the uninformed visitor, the Jersey, an affluent, a comfortable, certainly a very friendly place, but there remain the traditional policing challenges.
Yeah.
So it isn't just an affluent place. There are also the type of crime that one might expect elsewhere as well.
Well, I mean, one thing, and I say we now as I've been in the island 2 years, it made me smile the other day when I was speaking to someone at an event, and they came to me and said, oh, you're the new police chief. And I said, well, I've actually been here nearly 2 years. And I asked one of my team, and the team said, well, when you've been here 30 years, you'll no longer be called the new police chief, which I sort of liked. One thing I think we are, and the island is sensitive about, is being called a tax haven. I do not see Jersey as a tax haven. Yes, it has lower taxes, but as any informed person will know, there are very, very strict rules. We are very closely regulated, and only last week we arrested 3 people for laundering money who are now in the local prison. So in terms of types of crime, yes, we don't have those levels of burglary and robbery that you might see in some of our UK forces, the levels of assaults necessarily, car crime and that sort of thing, although there's been reductions in the UK on those things over the last few years. Our main areas are financial crime, for which we have separate and independent teams of investigators working with what we call the Law Officers Department, which is sort of the equivalent of what your viewers might know as the CPS.
Crown Prosecution Service in England and Wales.
With our own Attorney General, but and then a slightly different setup from there. But so that drugs, the importation of drugs, we are seen as I think a rich target, and about a year ago we increased the number of our drug squad and renamed. Everybody knows what the drug squad is, and I think over the last years of my service we've come up with some different names for these things. We have a drug squad, they're very successful, but of course people are trying to import drugs, whether by air, by the sea, by the ferry, or often by post. So we're very alive to that too. And then, not unlike other places, we have levels of youth crime and persistent young offenders that we are working really hard on more recently to divert those young people from repeatedly making or committing offences. But we have 18,000 young people in the island out of a population of around about, I think it's about 110, and a tiny minority of those commit crime. Of that 110,000, we also have, and this may surprise some of your viewers, we have 20,000 Portuguese. There's a long and very rich history and tradition of Portuguese nationals, particularly from Madeira, coming to Jersey. And frankly, I don't think the island could operate as effectively as it does. And then Eastern Europeans as well, although that was disrupted because of COVID and some of our...
So quite a diverse community.
Yeah.
And yet my recollection is that you have some roughly 350 staff, some 250 sworn officers. So any specialist units that you put together is drawing from an already very scarce overall resource. How do you manage to staff those specialist units and also have resource available for the the core policing, if I can describe it as that?
So one small correction, although I would never look a gift horse in the mouth, Bernard, is we have 215
police
officers.
I stand corrected.
250 would be fine. No,
215.
I'm not going to argue with that. Of course, there is no such thing in a small island like Jersey as something called mutual aid. I can't call upon. I suppose I could if things got particularly desperate. I get enormous amounts of support from the National Police Chiefs Council. They are always available for conversations, particularly during the current disputes and arguments we have with our French neighbours. Especially helpful and useful to me and my team during the time when we were policing the pandemic.
Yes.
But of course we are standalone, and you know, I need my own high-tech crime unit. I need my own custody. I can't collaborate. It's very difficult to collaborate. There is some limited collaboration with nearby Guernsey. So we are what we are, and that brings about its own challenges. So when for example we've just been exploring a counter-corruption unit, that means, you know, sparse resources to do something that really islanders won't really see, and like any community.
So that's making sure that the internal professional standards, lowercase p, lowercase s, of the States of Jersey Police are fit for purpose. So making sure that there's no risk of any of your officers or staff having been drawn into anything that runs counter to the ethos of policing.
I see one of my main roles, and indeed all of our staff, all 340 or so of them, is we are all guardians of our reputation. And that reputation in policing terms, in the most general, widest UK terms, you know, has for reasons that we understand, taken a bit of a hit, to say the least, in the last few months. But we're all guardians of that reputation, and I know chief officer colleagues, not just in the UK but around the world, feel you know, acutely aware of our responsibilities to make sure that we maintain the trust and confidence of our communities. I see that as one of my number one job, whether it's staff that they may find themselves in trouble with the wrong side of the law, or indeed during a global pandemic where communities expect the police service and other services to step up.
So you've now had this 2 years in Jersey. I'd like to come on to what you've seen in that 2 years here in Jersey that you think merits wider attention in police forces worldwide. You know, what in particular do you think? Yes, let's just head. We're navigating a. It's not a busy road, but it's
There's no busy roads in Jersey.
Okay, so well, although I have experienced one or two busier roads yesterday, but that's another story. So Jersey, shout about some of Jersey's ways of policing that you think merit wider attention elsewhere.
Well, I think if any of my chief officer colleagues are watching this, I mean,
They'd better be.
Let's hope so. They would be surprised with all the things that we attend to.
Yep.
And I remember one of my senior team saying, because we effectively go to nearly every call, within reason, not obviously the ridiculous ones, but one of my senior team said to me after I've been here a few weeks, he said, "Sir, it's a great and beautiful thing." And I've not forgotten that, because it is a great and beautiful thing that we have the time and the ability and the resource to attend those jobs that you know, when I was in the UK they would become more and more difficult to attend.
Yes.
So
morning.
That would be one of the first observations I'd make. It is a force that is deeply embedded into its local communities, and as you may know, Bernard, the island is divided into 12 independent parishes, Some people in England might see them as 12 individual beats.
Yes.
And as we discussed earlier, I'm very keen, and have been keen in the 2 or so years I've been here, is to get back to basics. And I know that sometimes sounds like a bit of a cliche, but the basics are good basics. So we have community police officers, some call them neighbourhood police officers, in each of our parishes. Each of the parishes is independently led by a constable, or as is always often described, the connotab, and he or she is the person who is in charge of that parish, and they work closely with what we call the chef de police, so the chief of police.
Yes.
For the honorary police, which I suppose, whilst not identical, may be seen as some comparisons with the special constabulary in the UK, but it has a deep tradition. In fact, I seem to recall someone saying to me a while ago that the honorary police system in Jersey is the oldest police force in the world, maybe older than the Vatican Guard, or around that time.
What struck me about in reading about the states of Jersey police before we met this morning, you know, what you describe as states of Jersey police having the ability to respond to almost all calls. That's a luxury that sadly many others won't have, despite desire. But on the honorary police side, my understanding is that these I want to say centenniers. You'll correct me on the pronunciation, I'm sure, but give me a moment first. These are individuals that are elected by their local parishes to represent or to become the honorary police for that parish, and so there is a very direct link between them and the community, and between them and the salaried police officers and staff within the states of Jersey, which it does have parallels perhaps with special constables in the UK, but those special constables put themselves forward. The honorary police here in Jersey put themselves forward and are elected.
Not all of them. Some of the key roles are elected, but the important part, which is the comparison between the honorary police and the special constabularies, they are all volunteers. So they are not paid to do what they do, and they work almost exclusively within their own particular parishes. It works extremely well, but there's a number of other benefits and there's a number of other differences. So, for example, States of Jersey Police does not have the authority to charge individuals. That is the job of the centennier.
Thank you for the correction and pronunciation.
So, when we come to a charging position, we will speak to the centennier,
yes,
who is a member of the honorary police, and the centennier will turn up and determine whether or not to charge.
Yes.
The system works very well. Where I think there are other additional benefits with, if you like, a parish system, and one of your sort of questions a while ago was, you know, what could we learn in Jersey to other places, and that is, it administers justice on a parish by parish basis. So for relatively minor crimes, including things, you know, like speeding or low-level assaults, various other things, the offenders, for want of a better word, will end up at something called a parish hall inquiry. We call it PHE. So they avoid the criminal justice system, particularly good for young people. And it will be the honorary officers, often the centennier, who will administer justice.
Yes.
On a parish by parish basis, but it will not be a criminal conviction. And I think that gives people a chance. Now, often, there will be speeding offences and the like, but there'll be other offences as well. where we can avoid putting people through or giving them a criminal record. And
Yes.
I think that's another very, very deep tradition here, and one that I wholeheartedly support.
So there are some differences, some of them significant differences here from your previous experience. That's to acknowledge that throughout the world there are opportunities both to export the good ideas, but also to import and learn from good ideas elsewhere, which I do hope that there are elements there that others can take note of and hopefully learn from. I'm going to pause this for a moment because just if we take a look now at part of the vista that's opening before us, just in the distance the lighthouse from which we've headed earlier this morning, this southern bay,
St. One's Bay.
St. One's, but on the south of the island. So then various fortifications from over the years in front of us, and then ahead of us this rolling, extensive, looks very sandy beach with the tide out, and our destination for the morning ahead of us. I just reflecting on this beautiful scenery, and there is so much more of this in Jersey. I want now to come to and we'll press on a little further, but one of the topics again we touched on this morning was the at some point over the last 24 hours, or recently at least, you've had meetings discussing the force's use of electric vehicles, and you told me that the force already has 50% of its vehicles as electric, which struck me as a very substantial proportion, something else that so many other forces would be enormously proud of, and I'm sure you're proud of that, but your ambition is even greater than that.
So we recently met with the chief exec for Jersey Electric, Chris Ambler, to talk about how we might turn all of our fleet, all of it into an electric fleet, including some of the larger vans, which is currently the challenge round about cost, etc. But Jersey Electric have been enormously supportive as part of our sort of electrification. So that's our aspiration. But of course, one of the benefits I have is I police in a 9x5 island.
Surely, well, go on, I'll let you finish, but I'm intrigued. How can it be 9x5?
This beautiful place is 9x5.
9x5, 925 as I first, no, 9x5.
9x5, and if there was ever a place in the world where we could have a completely electric fleet, it would have to be in Jersey. And in fact, I'm surprised that I would say that one day all cars in electric will be electric cars. I mean, they'll have some vintage ones, and there's various other cars I've seen here, but that's our aspiration. And given what's been going on this week with COP26, I think that's a very, very, very achievable aspiration with really good partners.
So I know of no other police force in the world that has 100% electric fleet. So I'm sort of taking from that there's an ambition to be one of the first, if not the first, police force that has that all-electric fleet, made in part possible by the geography of the island, but also by your own and the chief executive of Jersey Electric's ambition to make that happen.
I mean, I think again, given what's been going on in the conference in Scotland, I think that's an aspiration for everybody in the island, but not just us, but all the emergency vehicles and all government vehicles as well. But I think, would I like States of Jersey Police to be able to say that it's the first all-electric fleet? I would, but of course I suspect there are other places out there that may be ahead of us. But what I'm determined to do, with the support of others, is to work to that goal, and that goal does not feel that far away anymore.
Superb, superb. Well, we've now lost the view of the beach, but I am just going to pause us here. No, I think we'll go a little further on. I think it may open up again just in 100 yards or so, but brings me to my final question for this walk, which has been enormously enjoyable on so many fronts. It's something of a tradition on these Policing Friendship Tour walks and recordings to ask the guest, the person I'm walking with, about a favourite charity of theirs. So let me pose that traditional question to you, Robin. A favourite charity?
Well, before I do, Bernard, first of all, thank you. Thank you for a really lovely interlude into my day. And I'm sure we're all busy with meetings and all the rest of it. And so thank you for
absolutely my pleasure.
Me, and also me being able to show you the beauty of this place and to talk about policing to someone who knows so much about it already. My charity is, for personal reasons, is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, or the JDRF. And 5 years ago or so, just over 5 years ago, my 14-year-old son, as he was then, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And since then, him and I have done a bit of marathon running, and it gave us a real focus. And I didn't realise how that disease affects young people, predominantly young people, with the obvious difference between type 1 and type 2. So it came as a complete shock to all of us and all our family, and it means that he needs to ensure that he properly medicates himself throughout the day, every day, for the rest of his life. So the reason why that charity is important to me is it's about research and about how we can better understand the disease, prevent it in the future, and also look at increasingly brilliant technology that means that he keeps safe and other young people keep safe.
So that's the Juvenile Diabetes Research Institute.
Foundation.
I beg your pardon, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Robin, my very best wishes to your son. My very best wishes and thanks to you, and indeed to your wider States of Jersey police colleagues. The reception I got at your headquarters front desk was superb this morning, as it so often is at so many police headquarters, but of particular note here in Jersey this morning. The sky is just a little darker. We have some fluffy clouds around us. The vista opens up here. We'll be back to the beach very shortly. At some point there'll be a coffee for us, I'm sure, or something similar just here.
The timing is perfect.
So, on that note, Robin, it's been a very great pleasure this morning. Thank you so much. And here's to the coffee that's just a few yards away from us.
Thank you very much.
All the best.